greetings from Miss Ruth and Mr. Steve. Hey, Steve. You know, we're here today at Harrisburg Community Church and hoping to speak to some of our kids that we have in our children's church here. And it's been a while that we've been able to get together like we'd like to. But I'm just going to share a little teaching here with you today, and I hope you listen, hope you be quiet and listen, and then share it with your mom and dad. So, anyway, what we're going to talk about is Jesus and Peter. Those are the two main people in this story. And the thing is, this is just not a story. Excuse me. This is real. Like Steve standing over here behind the camera, he's real. He's my friend. We have a relationship. Well, Peter and Jesus and the disciples, they were all real people. And they lived over 2,000 years ago, but they were just as real as we are today. And Jesus is still living, and he's living in us. So those are all big things. But we're doing this just to share the word of Jesus and to remind you that he really is alive and he really influences our lives and can change us. So anyway, I'm going to tell you about this moment in his life, in Peter's life. They were, it was getting close to a time that things were going to really go downhill. It was getting close to the time that Jesus was going to be crucified. And they were, in a sense, kind of staying away from all the bad stuff that seemed to be boiling up. So they kind of went on this retreat, and it was one of the prettiest places in the Holy Land. And I'm assuming it's still pretty. But they went there. Jesus had some conflict with the Pharisees, and then he was trying to teach the disciples about what had happened there, and they really didn't seem to get it. And they kept thinking of immediate things, that he was thinking about or talking about something else entirely different. Well, they got to this one place and they sat down and they did spend some time praying and talking, and just out of the blue, it seems like Jesus said to him, Jesus asked his disciples, "What are people saying about who the Son of Man is?" And this whole story is found in Matthew 16, 13 through 20. So this is a long scripture, but it's a conversation. It's not just, we have to memorize this scripture. This is a conversation between Jesus and the disciples. So he had said this. Who are these people saying about who the Son of Man is? These people were, he was like the kind of the rock star of the day. He was doing things. He was out there healing people and teaching and walking all over the countryside. And here Peter and these disciples had all left everything, their families and their businesses and their livelihoods even, and followed Jesus because he was just so compelling and seemed to have all the answers. And so but they didn't get so much because they were still just so human. And so there were other people, they were making speculations about who Jesus was. It's like, well, what he could be, and this is what they replied. Some think Jesus is John the Baptizer. Some say Elijah, some Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets. So the religious people were also saying these things. And so he listened to that. And then, Jesus, in this conversation, he looked at Peter and he said, "And how about you? Who do you say I am?" Now remember again that this man Peter was one of those that left everything to follow him. This should have been the reason, the answer coming up should have been the reason he was following. But we're not sure of that, because this is what Peter said. You're the Christ, Messiah, the Son of the living God. And you know what Jesus replied? Remember, this is a conversation between two people. Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but my Father in heaven." Okay, that was a big deal. And then he even went on after that to talk to Peter and saying, this is really the revelation that you've heard here from the revelation. This means something. Okay, I don't know what revelation is. Something that you don't know that all of a sudden you do know. And it doesn't so much come out of your head, it comes out of your heart. So that revelation was the first time we get a little bitty picture of what the church is about and what Jesus was going to do with his church. And that revelation of that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, was what that church was going to be built on. So Peter listened to that, and it wasn't but a little bit that Jesus started telling them that he was going to be going on and he was going to be crucified. And immediately Jesus says, "Leave me alone, Peter, and he told him, 'Get behind me, Satan.'" So this same man, Peter, who had got this revelation from God, was also listening to the enemy, because Peter said, "Oh, no, we can't have that. We can't have you. No, that's terrible. We don't want you to be crucified." But that was what Jesus came to do, to bear the sins of the world, and that was how that was going to happen. So we get a picture of a human man talking to another human man who is just different. He is spirit-filled, spirit-led. He's the Son of God. And you know the thing is, he also said some other things, and he says it to us. He calls us our friends. So those friends had a conversation. He calls us children also. Because when we're born of God, we're born to be the children of God. Anyway, the thing is, I want you to think about, and as children, remember, you all have that ability to believe the truth and just accept it. But there will be a day that you'll have to figure out as an adult, and who do you say Jesus is? Who do you say I am? He will answer you. Jesus asked me that on the road one time as I was traveling home, and I came to a crossroads. And I realized at that moment that crossroads was my life. And I could choose Jesus, or I could continue on the way I was. And I thought at that moment, Jesus died for me. And if Steve had died for me, I would have tried to honor him with my life. And that's what I decided to do that day. I took the road less traveled and chose Jesus. And I want you in your hearts to always choose Jesus. So, and you can ask people, who do you say Jesus is? We live in a time that everybody needs to know it, because it's going to make all the difference. So, anyway, that's our lesson today. Remember, that was Matthew. What did I say it was? I never remember scripture verses. It's the address, I forget. Matthew 16, 13 through 20. And how about you? Who do you say I am? And if you like this, like it on Facebook and share it with your friends perhaps. So we love you. Bye.